Good evening. Welcome to the Canby City Council regular meeting for August 6, 2014. If you'll please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please stay standing for a moment of silence, please. Great. Thank you. And we're actually reconvening our meeting earlier. We had a couple of pieces earlier this evening, work session to discuss some pieces for Canby Area Transit, and then some conversation about our public officer, which we'll get into here in a little bit later. So we'll start off with communications. Anything from the right side, my right side?
No, Mayor, thank you.
No? Okay, thank you very much. First opportunity for citizen input and community announcements. If there are any yellow cards from anyone here that would like to speak or address us? Great. Seeing none, we will move on to mayor's business. First piece for me this evening, I just want to give everyone an update on the city manager choice and selection. So last week, the council and a number of staff members and community members participated in interviews of 4 candidates for the vacant city manager position. And we've narrowed our choice down, and we are very pleased with our results on that. So hopefully everyone will welcome our choice in Regan Bully. If I'm saying that correctly, Bully? Bully. Okay.
We should probably learn how to say it.
Right. So we've got a couple of housekeeping items that we've got to take care of first. We'll have a motion here in a moment, but to recognize that, and then we'll have to finish up some contract negotiation pieces and background check. And once those are completed, we'll officially and work out a start date for our new city manager. We will let everyone know when that is. Is that in our agenda this evening later?
New business.
Thank you very much. We'll take that motion later. So, yes, so Reagan Bully will be hopefully our new city manager here in a couple weeks. So again, thank you to staff and to the citizens that were involved with the interviews. It was a great process, and I think we've got some, it was a tough choice. We had 2, I think, that really stood out that we really deliberated pretty hard on, and so I think we've got a good choice in our selection, so thank you to that. Second item, sounds like Kim and I were talking that we might have a light agenda on September's first meeting in September, but it sounds like we might be adding the CAT piece to September's meeting. Is there additional items I think that we should talk about or throw on there so that we're not just meeting on one item? A couple of things that I had up for conversation pieces were the CAT piece, which we were adding. Conversation that Amanda and I had talked about earlier this week was the discussion on the city buildings that will come available, what we want to do about that, and adding that specifically to the agenda for, I know we're talking about the consolidation piece this evening, but we wanted to expand on that further, possibly as an agenda item. We also had a number of items at our budget meeting this year in terms of just additional or policy recommendations from our finance director and our own priorities. If that was a conversation topic that we wanted to have now or wait until our new city manager comes on board. Councilor Dale suggested maybe revisiting the vision plan, reviewing our successes and priorities within that. I know lodging conversation has been a conversation piece with us up here as well as with Renata, and what does that look like? Is it hotel, if it's other items? And then the banner conversation, I think we should probably add to the September meeting. I know that we're going to have some emails back and forth on that, but maybe we can have that discussion and finalized as a piece for September's meeting. Any other thoughts or?
I think the banner discussion is good to have at that meeting. I don't know, maybe the visioning is a good thing to talk about, but I'm wondering if maybe that is a discussion that could wait until we do have a new administrator on board that can join those discussions and get up to speed on the visioning statement with us in that discussion.
My intent on that one was just for us to take a little bit to just refamiliarize ourselves with where we are and
With the goals we set
the goals
on
we
it.
set,
Okay.
just to get our brains ready for when he arrives.
I'm on the
just-
same page.
And I'm thinking short period of time,
Okay.
just not a lot of minutes.
Okay. All right, well, I guess since we will be meeting on the first meeting, Kim and I will put our heads together and see what we come up with. Before I continue, we have some visitors that seem to have slipped in. Can't let you guys come in and not
Get some recognition.
get some recognition here, so is there a spokesperson who'd like to come up and, well, why don't all three of you gentlemen come up and
There you go.
introduce yourselves and tell us who you are and what you're working on.
Right here to the table.
Right there at the table, this one?
Good to see you.
Hi, we're from Troop 258 here in Canby. We're the Boy Scouts, and we're attending this we're earning a merit badge called Citizenship in the Community, and we're attending this and we're taking notes on what's happening here and like an issue or something and a view on that and like the opposing view and that sort of thing.
Great.
Okay.
Your names?
I'm Mitchell Kaufman.
I'm Austin Tisdale.
And I'm Ben Tisdale.
Great.
All right.
Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
We'll try to find something to argue about.
Find something.
Great, well, thank you guys for coming. C4 update, I'll have more after tomorrow evening, after what, we've had a 2-month or 3-month hiatus from that, so I'll have more at our next meeting. And finally, on my piece, I want to give a big thank you to Joan and Darren Monin for their hosting and promotion of the Hair Fest. It was a tremendous event, and I single it out for the reason that it's a huge event that takes place here in Canby. I think the first night, their Saturday night, they had over 2,000 people attend, and 90% of those, I think, are from outside of Canby. It's a huge draw to our town, and this year, Joan and her team did a spectacular job and included a number of other Canby businesses to the event, serving food and other drinks and whatnot, as well as the Canby High School rugby team was there holding a fundraiser, and curly fries. I think she's done, it's a huge event, and I think, and I acknowledge it because she has reached out to the other businesses in our community to help promote them and promote Canby overall, so I wanted to thank them for a great event. Now we just got to work on some housing to keep those people here overnight in town. So that
Well
concludes
said, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
my pieces, and we'll start down there with Council Rocha for council reports.
Nothing tonight, Mr. Mayor.
I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you a question then. There was the dog park meeting a couple weeks back. Any word on that piece?
I was not able to attend it, but I did talk to Matilda, and she said it was very well attended. There was a lot of people who have volunteered, and she's working on grants, and I think she'll have a report for us here soon.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Councilor Hensby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My liaison report is going to be very small as, school's out and C4 is tomorrow night. But I did attend a number of community events, including First Friday and the Chamber Luncheon yesterday. And I was invited to attend the rodeo kickoff celebration. That was the first time I've attended something involved with the rodeo that wasn't actually the rodeo. And that was a very good time. So I'll serve that as a reminder that the Clackamas County Fair and Rodeo does kick off Tuesday, this coming Tuesday the 12th, with the Kiwanis Kitty Parade at 10 a.m. So come look for us downtown and follow us onto the fair. That's my report today.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Library Liaison Report, I'd like to commend Amanda for identifying Melissa Kelly as our new Library Director. I think she's an outstanding person, and I think she's going to be an excellent choice for a Library Director. Also, I'd like to once again congratulate Roger Reif as our new Library Board Chairman, and our next board meeting will be this next Tuesday. On the traffic safety meeting front, I'd like to welcome our newest member that will be announced tonight, Stephanie Boyce. And one of the great things about our traffic safety group, it's very well attended. There was 12 this last time, I so much appreciate the police chief as a regular at our meetings, police officer Jeremy Holstead, planning director Brian Brown, public works lead Jerry Nelzine. We just have an outstanding group, and we just really proud of the work we're doing. This past meeting, we got together, because if you've noticed on 13th Street, there's been a number of new signs that have gone up, and one of the newest ones is a digital readout sign that tells how fast you're actually going, and that sign is particularly helpful in that it collects a lot of data on the number of cars and the average speed, and that one is mobile as well. And it was kind of funny, the last time we met on the first Friday, we talked about, moving that sign to another location, and we determined that shifting it over to Territorial might be a good thing to do. And by that afternoon, Jerry Nelzine had shifted that sign over there. So we're just having a lot of fun. We're getting a lot of good things done. And again, I'm just real proud of the group.
Great.
That's all I have.
Did you also want to plug the fair as well, and rodeo?
Oh, yeah, I just think if you pick up Canby Herald, there's a good piece in there that kind of outlines all the activities throughout the week. If you go to Clackamas County Fair and Rodeo on the computer, they have many different days. I think Tuesday, I think, is Children's Day.
It is.
And then Wednesday is
Kitty Parade.
Senior Day, and it's just a wonderful fair. We're just so...
Military Day, and
Yeah.
there's a number of different.
We're just really fortunate to have it in our community, so thank you.
Thank you, sir. Council President Dale.
Mr. Mayor, I had the pleasure of attending the Chamber of Commerce golf tournament, thanks to Mr. Mayor and the fine people at Peak Mortgage. And we won.
We did.
We won a prize.
We did win a prize.
That's all we'll say.
We won a prize.
We won it? Right, the objective is to have highest score, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And we won
That's
that
why we
prize.
won.
Score.
And Canby Utility Board did not have a meeting, their second meeting in July, so no report from them tonight.
One of the questions I had for you, Council President Dale, is in summers past, there's been conversation about water usage and peakiness, to use Matt Michael's term. Has there been an issue this year with our hot temperatures and whatnot with regards to that?
Not that I've heard of so far. Particularly no issues with water shortage.
Okay.
So,
Doesn't mean everyone needs to go out and wash their cars and water more, but just that we're holding steady.
I think Matt would be pleased as long as he has water for us to buy it. But no, Chairman Cornelius is here tonight. I've heard nothing about any shortage issues at all, so,
We don't anticipate it,
yeah.
Great.
so go on ahead and wash your car.
Okay. Thank you both. Appreciate it. Councilor Parker.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. My liaison committees, both Historic Review and the Bike Pedestrian Committee are taking a vacation this month, so nothing to report on that. I also attended the Chamber event, the kickoff for the fair, and it also reminded me of what a wonderful perfect mixture that Canby is of an urban-rural situation where we have our roots, not just our historic roots, but so many kids still today involved in FFA, and we had a presentation by some of the kids that are raising animals, Canby just offers this tremendous mix of a great place to live and work, and this small town feel. So it was very encouraging to finally get to go to another chamber meeting, since my work schedule with the school has kept me from doing that. And then also, I didn't have a chance, I don't know if we had a meeting since our last, the 3-on-3 tournament that was held downtown, but just what an awful lot of work that the Rotary did on that. In the evening, I came behind Roger Reif's office late in the evening, and the Rotarians were still at work, putting things away, stacking things up. A full day of work giving to the community. So it was neat. It also brought people from out of town. So now we just need a hotel to keep them here so they can have breakfast the next day.
Thank you, sir.
No, Mr. Mayor, I was absent last week because of a vacation that we took up in Spokane and trying to acclimate ourselves to the temperature up there after having left some heat wave here, and we averaged about 100 degrees up there every day. And so it's so good to get back to temperate climate like here in Canby, and looking forward to my next meetings with committees that I'll be attending.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Good to have you.
All right, thank you all. Yes, sir.
I have a question, because I know Julie from CAT was going to have yet one more year of service for the fair to make sure that everybody gets the word out, and so maybe that would be something that could be mentioned.
Yeah, that was listed in the Canby Herald. They had a special Clackamas County Fair insert, and it lists the times and places that they'll be shuttling during the fair time.
And what do they offer? Is that for free?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
and the primary location, probably the one that's used the most, is at Fred Meyer's. That goes direct to
So
the
the triangle,
fair,
right?
yeah.
So
Save $5 on parking.
Yeah.
So Canby Area Transit is, yes, once again running the shuttle this year between the
Right.
fairgrounds and both, I think, Fred Meyer and, or I think all three stops, right? Thriftway, Fred Meyer, and Safeway, correct?
Right.
Yes.
And I think they had some extended times that they were offering last year, but they had very low ridership, but they wanted to go ahead and offer them again this year for some consistency purposes to see if that ridership increased and if it was a valuable service to offer. If they don't see the ridership again this year, they probably will discontinue those extended hours next year.
Okay. That's been a great service to have for the fair, so thank you both, appreciate that, thank you, sir. Okay, I'll take, moving to the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt the minutes of the July 9th, 2014 City Council Special Meeting and Work Session, the minutes of the July 16th, 2014 regular meeting, and the appointment of Stephanie Boyce to the Traffic Safety Commission for a term to end on June 30th, 2017.
Have a second, please.
A second.
Motion's been made by Council President Dale and seconded by Councilor Hensley to approve the consent agenda, which includes the adoption of the minutes of the July 9th, 2014 City Council Special Meeting and Work Session, minutes of the July 16th, 2014 regular meeting, and appointment of Stephanie Boyce to the Traffic Safety Commission for a term to end on June 30th, 2017. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries 6-0. Thank you very much. Old business this evening.
Yeah, we don't have that much.
Don't have that too often. Mr. Brian Brown.
Kim reminded me that what you have before you is findings that memorializes basically the decision you made on the text amendment at the previous meeting, that its main goal was to introduce the idea of type 2 process for development within the industrial park. And the findings before you indicates that your decision on that was to expunge or do away with those changes that had specific to do with that item and keep those reviews of any new development that are in the industrial park in a public format going through the Planning Commission, which is what they currently do today. However, I believe you also agreed that there were enough other wordsmithing improvements to the matrices that we had in the industrial code that we keep the text amendment moving forward without the rest of the items, and that's what you have here before you. This is just indicating that what's remaining in the changes are will be before you in the ordinance that's later on the agenda. And I know there was one comment by Councilor Dale, and I can address that when we get there.
All right. Any questions at all on the text amendment that's before us? Okay.
Good.
All right. Thank you, sir. Next item under old business is the annex.
Need a motion to adopt it?
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you.
To adopt the TA 1401?
Findings, conclusions, and final order.
I will take a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor, I move we adopt TA 1401, findings, conclusion, and final order.
Second that.
Motion has been made by Counselor Hensley and seconded by Counselor Coolman to accept or to approve text amendment 14-01, findings, conclusion, and final order of the text amendment. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries 6-0. All right. Next on the old business, under old business, is the annexation of 1401 / zone change, or ZC 1401, findings, conclusions, and final order development agreement. Is it?
I really didn't have much of a summary to tell you about those. Again, we do written findings to help memorialize what your decision, and so that's what they're reflecting. And as you know, there were 2 different annexations, and I guess the first one is the, I can't tell by the numbers, so I have to, I have to find it.
The first one there, yeah, so on
It's the
page 4.
first one, Franz and Vicar.
Yes, is the 4.47.
1546 North Pine Street. And there didn't appear to be anything specific to your findings, other than recommending approval as the Planning Commission had recommended to you.
Okay. Yes, there's the, almost 4.5 acres along North Pine. It's being designated, removed from, looking to be annexed here in November, and then moving it from the zone farmland to low-density housing.
Yeah, the R1 zone.
Great. Questions? Any questions on that at all?
No.
Okay, I'll take a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor, I move for annexation 14-01 and zone change 14-01, findings, conclusions, and final order development agreement.
Okay, a second, please.
Second.
Motion made by Council President Dale and seconded by Councilor Ryder to approve annexation 14-01 and zone change, or ZC 1401, findings, conclusion, and final order of development agreement. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 6-0. Next is annexation 14-02.
So that particular annexation involved property that's located on Southeast 13th Avenue, just west of the logging road trail and the new Sequoia Parkway extension. And that one had the multiple property owners that were involved. And this one differed from the other in that, rather than a development agreement, this was in an area that our annexation ordinance calls for a concept development plan, which is a more extensive analysis of a much larger area to make sure that all it's planned out in a reasonable manner for all infrastructure that might be needed for the entire area. And in those findings, the council accepted and supported the rationale that was presented by the applicant, and talked about the park that's proposed in this particular annexation. And at that meeting, it was kind of a last-minute decision, but the applicant decided to propose a smaller park, and I think the council looked at that favorably, and we were excited to have the possibility of a wayside area right at the convergence of the logging road trail, and in a location that preserves a good stand of trees that are out in that area. and provides a really good connection for people to the trail system and on the school property as well. And so this memorializes that and pushes it on towards the November ballot, and see how the citizens of Canby feel as well.
Mr. Mayor, I move we adopt annexation 14-02, zone change 1402, findings, conclusion, and final order with the development concept plan.
I'll second.
Thank you both. Motion made by Councilor Hensley and seconded by Councilor Rocha to approve annexation 14-02 and zone change 14-02, findings, conclusions, and final order in the development concept plan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 6-0. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate that.
The first item we have under resolutions and ordinances is Resolution 1196. This is to ratify the contract between the City of Canby and Local 350-6, AFSCME Council 75 AFL-CIO for the period from July 1st, 2014 through June 30th, 2017.
So just a quick little bit of history. The contract with AFSCME expired on June 30th, as Kim just mentioned. We entered into negotiations beginning of March, got a notice from the association, or the union, mid-February, their demand to bargain, and consensually we wanted to come to the table. We had about 6 meetings total, a really good process, I think. Staff that was at the table came with an understanding that we had some limited resources this year. So I am happy to bring forth a contract for your approval and ratification that the city and union have bargained the terms and conditions of the new contract. We are asking for it to be retro back to July 1st. Unfortunately, we didn't get final health insurance rates until around the beginning of July, as we were continuing to negotiate those on behalf of the city. So this contract would be retro to July 1st. The union met the end of July with their bargaining group and ratified the tentative agreement. So bring them forward to you.
Thank you, Amanda, and thank you to both of you for going through that process. Every year it is, whenever those come up, those are tend to be interesting and can be drawn out. So I appreciate the quick turnaround on that and what you were able to get accomplished. So thank you very much for that. Great. Any questions for staff on this at all? No? All right. I'll take a motion then.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt Resolution 1196, a resolution to ratify the contract between the City of Canby and the Local 350-6 AFSCME Council 75 AFL-CIO for the period from July 1st, 2014 through June 30th, 2017.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Rocha, second by Councilor Ryder to approve Resolution 1196, ratify the contract between the City of Canby and the Local 350-6 AFSCME Council 75 AFL-CIO for the period from July 1st, 2014 through June 30th, 2017. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 6-0. Thank you.
The next item we have is Ordinance 1398. This is amending Chapters 16.30, 16.32, 16.34, 16.35, and 16.49 of Title 16 of the Canby Municipal Code.
The text amendment on the Pioneer Industrial Park that we just discussed with the findings, they are required, since it's part of the land development and zoning ordinance, to be approved with an ordinance. And so you have the ordinance before you. It basically indicates that we followed the criteria that are in the code, which includes review in accordance with the comprehensive plan and the land development code, and plans and policies of the county, state, and local districts, and that it will preserve the function and local aspects of land conservation and development, and that the public need for such a change has been demonstrated, and that the amendment will serve the public need better than any other change which might be expected to be made. and that it helps protect the health, safety, and general welfare of the city. And attached to the ordinance is Exhibit A, which is the actual changes that are proposed. And as I mentioned before, we removed all the references to a Type 2 process within the industrial overlay zone. And on section, it's your page 88 of your packet, on section 16.49.040, there is, under A, there is a reference to the planning director still exercising his powers for a Type 2 process, but that's, in this particular section, that's having to deal with site and design review, and so that has exercises control over the downtown overlay district where we have the Type 2 process. This is existing language. The reason it's underlined here is because we're changing the order of A and B as it exists in the current code, because the previous section in 1649.030 talks about the Type 2 process first, then the Type 3, so for consistency, we changed these orders. And Councilor Dale pointed that out today, and I'm thinking that that was the issue that he was looking at. And while looking at that, I did find an error on the next page, which says that same thing again under C. And so we do have to get rid of the duplication. And so the final ordinance that we are going to, or exhibit that we will attach to this ordinance, will actually cross out C, because it's the exact same wording that is in A, which was already existing in the current code.
So under 16.49.040, letter, the C that we've got in blue here, that'll come out.
That's right. Then the others will be relettered to
Okay.
follow, because it's just a duplication.
All right.
Very good.
Okay.
Thanks, Brian.
Comments or questions?
Do we have to make the motion including the amendment that he's about to make then?
Or as amended?
Do they need to, it's just a typographical.
Yeah, no, it's,
What's going to be posted will be this.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Motion, please.
Move that we adopt ordinance 1398, amending chapters 16.30, 16.32, 16.34, 16.35, and 16.49 of Title 16 of the Canby Municipal Code.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Ryder and seconded by Councilor Coleman to approve ordinance 1398, amending chapters 16.30, 16.32, 16.34, 16.35, and 16.49 of Title 16 of the Canby Municipal Code. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 6-0.
if I could take just a moment of your time, I'm having the jobs per acre issue was part of that text amendment, and you had asked that we analyze the existing industrial park, all of the current occupants, and find out whether they actually meet our 12 employees. And actually, the wording of that, I didn't realize it at first, but it says 12 employees per developed acre. And so when we were looking at them, we had to look at aerials and determine tax lots and figure out which of them have some potential for expansion. And so we've noted those on this with a little asterisk. And I actually did a little extra work because we just got this done, or I'd have a correct copy to you, but the ones with asterisks, if you start with Shimadzu, they still have about a third of their total land area available for expansion. So if you subtract a third of their site, they actually have 14.35 jobs per acre. So they actually do meet the standard. Right now, it's saying 9.6, because that was their entire acreage that they own. And then there was, on Pioneer Pump, they're already meeting the standard, but if you subtract some expansion area they have, they're actually 31.77 jobs per developed acres. And one other one is Boco. Their entire site, they're only 8.96, but that's not how the ordinance reads. It says developed acres, and if you subtract their expansion area, they're planning to double their building right behind it within the next 2 years. It's 13.41, and so they're also now just meeting that standard as well. But if you look at the rest, you will see that there are 4 existing nice businesses in the park that do not meet that standard, with the lowest being down at the bottom with only 5.82 employees per acre. And, you know, I'm not going to take time to get into this in any great degree, but I thought this would be really good information, and certainly you thought it would be good information to know. And this is what we intuitively, as on staff, had known through the years, that whether they tell you something the day they move in, or whether that's a goal within 2 years or within 5 years, or, you know, their business does fine for the first 2 years and then they go down, and then maybe they build back up in 3 or 4 years. They have these expansion areas. It's a lot more complicated than we think. We haven't had time to review it yet, but we did find some information at the state level that seems to be a booklet that talks about how you establish that number. So I'll review that and maybe come back and tell you a little bit more about maybe what we should do.
All right. Thank you, Brian.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
For me, the takeaway on this, Brian, is that we've been able to get a better handle on the job-producing capacity of this acreage that we've got. Nearly 68 developed acres here and almost 1,000 jobs. Jobs are important, also from a tax standpoint, so is the investment in the property. And it's important to have a good mix. One of our larger employers probably has property values that aren't as great as a high-tech company. So it's important to have a good mix on this stuff, and I'm okay with our number and our standard being aspirational, but I'd like to at least have a goal out there that is city policy, that we are going to try and get the most out of these properties as they develop. So thank you for doing this research. Let's keep our eyes on it. If there are situations where we have to be flexible in this, I'm okay with that. But I think it is better to have something to shoot for and not always get there, rather than have nothing at all.
And just a reminder that the ordinance doesn't say we have to turn them away. It says they then need to go through a public hearing process to be approved if they are anticipating to meet the 12 employees per developed acre.
This is great information. Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
thanks.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, we'll move into new business. First item is the discussion regarding downtown buildings and consolidation.
Thank you. Staff previously and recently had some discussions about the potential of relocating on a temporary basis over to the old police department. Some of the reasons why those discussions came about is during the budget process, we had some staff reductions, so we wanted to make sure that we had adequate coverage, specifically as it relates to customer service and being able to be available to the public. Also for efficiencies and how we're spending money, and an opportunity to consolidate staff for the first time and see how the flow works and if there's things that come up that we hadn't considered as we look at designing a new facility. So we started to put some costs together. Unfortunately, I didn't get enough information to provide you a full and accurate assessment tonight, but we are over $30,000 that we know of for known costs. That would be carpet cleaning, interior painting, relocating telephones, maybe placing a sign up there that says that's the new building, some lights that need to be replaced. What we don't have yet is the cost to physically relocate. We've been getting some quotes. We're in the process of getting some quotes. We had one from a professional moving service that was, we've gotten a couple of them, the lowest one being in the $7,200 range. We'll be looking at quotes just to have laborers available to help us move our own stuff. We believe that the building is structurally sound. I did walk through it with an insurance representative, found a couple minor things we wanted to check into, so we've got some consultants that will be coming out next week to give us some estimates. But it could likely be up to $50,000 to relocate. So in addition to talking about the consolidation at a completely separate location, we really came up with about 4 different options. One, making no changes at all. Obviously the least disruption to staff, but we still have multiple customer service locations. We talked about relocating finance staff over to the City Hall building, which would allow us to have one customer service location for all non-planning and building related issues or services. That would free up at least one building to be put on the market. The last one would be to relocate over all of staff that we've been talking about and free up 2 buildings. One major con that comes with both of those is that we are currently using the parking behind the finance building for transit parking. If those properties are sold off prior to having another location for transit buses, we have an issue. So that's one thing to take into consideration if those properties get put on the market right now before we have another plan. Ultimately, what we've done to this point to try to address the customer service and efficiency issues is the finance staff has people on a rotating basis coming over to City Hall and being available for the utility billing service and backing up administration as possible, and it seems to be working fairly well. We haven't had any coverage issues. It's allowing some cross-training of staff, and the utility billing still has at least 1 or 2 people available to accept payments. So that's where we're at. At this point, we're still collecting costs. One conversation recently with the mayor, it's really, regardless of where we all are, current occupancy wouldn't prohibit the city from putting any buildings up for sale. I wanted to add also, I did have a citizen come in today, not in favor of consolidation very strongly, and he asked, I told him about the meeting tonight and encouraged him to come if he was available to give his opinion. He was not available, but he asked me if I would please tell you that there is at least one citizen out there that is not in favor of this consolidation, nor is he in favor of a second floor on a new civic building. So I told him I would be happy to share that information with you.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
That's what I have so far.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Well, I need to take the blame for getting this ball rolling. After a Main Street presentation of what properties were unoccupied on Main Street, the only one was a city-owned building, and I said, well, let's try and do something about that. Let me turn the sock inside out about the criticism about consolidation. I am less about consolidation than I am about achieving two other strategic goals. One is to sell our properties and to get something on the market, and Councilor Hensley and I strongly agree on this one, is that we want to return these properties to the tax rolls and to private development and have more people working downtown. Can that be done by doing nothing? I don't know. But if we do come through with the sale, then we're kind of behind the ball on doing these things. So for me, it's not an issue of consolidation. It's a way of achieving a strategic goal of returning public properties downtown to the private sector, putting that on the tax roll. I also believe, and some real estate people who actually know things have told me, that it is easier to sell a professional property, just as it is a private residence, when it is occupied. That it is taken care of, it is heated, it is painted, and that someone coming through to take a look at the police station, which we're going to be selling at some point, that it would be easier to try and sell that. And then finally, on the bus parking, that being a con, if I'm sitting here with $900,000 in cash, I can find some place to park those buses for a year. So I'll help with that issue. But I think the goal for me isn't necessarily consolidation. Consolidation is a result of achieving these other strategic goals. Putting money into the city coffers at a time when, frankly, we could use some reserves right now with some of the projects and things that we're going through. And also, I think the market's right. I think that the Development Services Building is a prime piece of real estate, prime for development at this time. There's going to be other development activity across the street and in that neighborhood. So that is why I want to proceed with this. And again, less about consolidation. Yeah, I think that's good, some efficiencies, but it helps us achieve a strategic goal of this council.
So can we meet that strategic goal without necessarily consolidating the offices into the police building?
We could try. Mr. Mayor, can I share a couple of thoughts?
Sure.
I'm a big fan of the idea of shifting the finance folks over to the city hall, because I think that would help things a lot. And we already pretty much have this city hall built out, so we wouldn't have to build anything out. It's a really nice structure, and I would put everything on the market right now. And I would clean up the police facility. I would not store things in it. I would clean it up, spruce it up, get it on the market. I would get virtually everything on the market, and I think that's the course of action I would take. I would not wait any longer. I would get those evaluated on what they're worth, freshen them up minimally. I wouldn't pour a whole bunch of money into them, and I would bring those finance people over to the city hall, and I would sell these buildings, except for this one.
Yeah, except for this one. Well, I don't think we were planning on selling City Hall, but we're going to sell this one. Yeah, it's worth take the whole lot.
Just a clarification on that, there isn't enough space in the City Hall building alone for all staff.
No, but
Just
the
finance.
finance building could come over there.
Finance, maybe.
I think that should be explored, moving finance. We could vacate one building, the finance building. The transit looks like we're working on that anyway. And like Councilor Parker said, I think we could find a place to put a bus if we sold the property. I'm not for putting a bunch of money into moving. It sounds like these moving costs are racking up, and it's a year. It's so temporary.
But then in that period of time, we sold one of these buildings that could possibly be more than enough to offset the cost of moving into the police station, if we still have that available.
Well, we could take whatever's storing in it and move it elsewhere and put 2 properties on the market, though.
Mr. Mayor, too, I think by freshening up the police station so it doesn't have storage and clutter, so it's very presentable, in the event that you do have a buyer come along, you could shift folks over to that building. But I don't think we should spend money unnecessarily.
So I just, we'll bring this back a minute, because I think the initial, to Counselor Parker's comments, and I think conversation that I think we've had, the initial thought being was we have 3 acts, now we're down to 2, because all billing pieces don't necessarily have to go into the finance building, they can come into City Hall, right?
Right, they actually previously were over at the Development Services.
So we've got 2 access points for staff to try to cover, and we were looking at trying to figure out how do we get it down to 1. And by bringing, planning into, and finance into the old police station, we clarify we mean selling the old PD, not the new one, the new one we're keeping, was to try to eliminate points of access the staff had to cover. Byproduct of that is to meet our strategic goals of selling properties and getting them back on the tax rolls, if need be sooner than later. We can market properties now. We can make them contingent, any sale of those properties contingent on when we've vacated and moved into a new building. Yes, they do sell better when they are actively in use and being used. So I think that the question first to be answered is moving finance maybe works. We still then have 2 points of access that we're trying to cover in terms of a billing piece, and that's the manpower piece that we're falling short on. Am I correct on that as I look to my two-thirds of the team there? Joe, you're covered, you're fine. That's kind of the crux of that main conversation.
Right.
Okay. So what we're looking at then is, do we continue to go down the road of, we went from 35, now we're 50,
About
we're,
30.
sorry, 30.
50 to move.
So does that,
80.
does that meet our goal? And that was the conversation we had sent, and the chore we gave Amanda to go look at was to do that.
I don't think it's worth it. For that amount, we could hire an OS2 and put them at the counter.
We're cut.
So I would divide the question. I would say, 1, is there anyone who objects on the council for us proceeding with putting the properties on the market? Then that gets us then down to the secondary question of what do we do about staffing and whether it is worth it. And I wasn't aware of the latest cost figures, and it's now pushing me into an area where I'm not comfortable. And yes, there actually is a point at which spending money is too much money even for me.
Praise the Lord. Scouts, here's the argument coming.
But truly, if we're going to spend $50,000, and the issue is access points, then we could fund another position for that.
Well, that's kind of brings in the question then. If we're going to spend that kind of money to consolidate because of a layoff, then why'd we do the layoff? That doesn't make sense to spend the money.
Yeah, the way
Sorry.
that we've made some changes with staff, we've got the positions and the customer service pieces covered. We do think that we created more efficiencies by having one access point for administration and finance pieces and one related to planning, building, whatever. We could relocate finance over, but as you mentioned, it really doesn't resolve the 2 access points. So
And it's a
it wouldn't be
cost
something
and
we
it's
would recommend.
And Mr. Mayor, I probably along with other councilors have observed the awkwardness of people coming into the planning department and being told, no, you can't do business here, you have to walk a block down and go to City Hall to pay your bills. So
Well, and conceivably, in less than 2 years, as we're tracking here, that won't be an issue. And that's that piece of it. So, I guess to you then, council, what is the charge going forward for, do you want Amanda, or staff to continue to pursue these 4 options? Are we done with this conversation? Do we then open it up and inquire with Haley on, is it a matter of a staffing piece? I don't know. But that's, I put that back.
Yeah, for me, it's hit my tolerance point as well. I don't see investing in the old PD as being really viable.
Okay.
I've been all for, let's just get them on the market, start that slow pipeline process going. I'm not concerned if we get an early sale. That's where you negotiate rent backs. And it takes time for developers to be ready to demo and develop. And Councilor Parker said, we'll find parking. If we get a sale, we'll find parking. And if we need the conference room in City Hall, let's use it. We can conference room in here. We can make it work.
We have budget meetings right there, we can conference there, and they can use that for cubicles or what have you. If it makes it easier on the finance staff to help out at City Hall, if they're already over here, then move them.
I hear you. Again, we are not the day-to-day. Our members here to the right are the day-to-day, so that may not be,
well,
again, it's temporary. I get it, but I just asked that as, we brainstorm, it's one thing.
Right.
We go home at the end of the day, you go to your job, I go to mine.
And they have to live with it.
Greg goes to, they're the ones that,
We know where Greg is.
it just becomes a different conversation in how to make that work.
Yes.
So,
How's this, Mr. Mayor? We've all gotten better at the council mulling over things. What if Amanda goes back to staff and mulls it over and see if there is a preferred recommendation, given this discussion now on where our priorities lie? That 50,000 seems too high.
Yep.
That is it possible to do something with finance in this building? And what would be the preferred recommendation of staff at this point? Because it's a 2-step process, Scott, so they've come to us, ask us for opinion, we've given them a little bit of the answer, they're going to go back, talk some more, and come back. But I would suggest that staff do some mulling and seeing if there's an option that that still is yet to be out there, that we are not going to determine or divine in real time tonight, that there may be something else out there that staff may want to forward to us.
Mr. Mayor, if I could add to that, what steps would we need to take to get these buildings on the market? Would we need to have an appraisal done? And if we do need to do that, if we need to vote on it, I think we should do that, because time is ticking away, and we're missing an opportunity to have those on the market.
I don't disagree with that. Let's finish the one point coming from Councilor Parker. Is that suitable?
That is suitable. I will be happy to go back with staff, and we'll continue to toss options around. I will say a preferred option for staff is going to be less disruptions and less unnecessary spending from a staff standpoint is going to be where we want to be as well.
Okay.
I also want to throw a big thank you out to staff because everybody is taken on a little bit more when we reduce some positions, and people are willing to step up and cross-train and come out of a little bit of comfort zones and work in different locations, and it's working. And it's working pretty well, I think. So I think that because we all understand that, consolidation to us would be great right now, it's probably not the most feasible based on the information that we're getting. So if we can avoid disruption prematurely, because we already know we're going to have to do one move and move everything at a certain point, if we can avoid that, doing that twice, it would be preferred.
Yeah.
We would prefer that as well. I mean, not doing two. Can we bring Joe down to help on occasion? Can he cover the front desk if need be?
If you direct him to do so.
He's our employee.
Yeah, oh, he is, that's right. All right, I'll let them decide that one. So in terms to answer Councilor Coleman's point and the conversation as well, that seems to be, yes, marketing, looking at the buildings. We've got to before we, I think, get to that point, I think there's a discussion piece in terms of which buildings, because we also have library building also as part of the consideration. Directing staff to begin a process.
Bring a
That's
recommended strategy to us that, again, they may have some ideas that we aren't even thinking about, and perhaps it's not even too soon to think about putting the library building into play.
Right.
With what Councilor Dale said, is that sale contingent upon vacating it. But, you know, the market's getting hotter, and we've got some properties that we can start putting out there, and I think if staff could begin researching the process of selling it. I know we've got some experience, I think Renata may have done some of it with getting out there and marketing our industrial property. But if I don't know what the steps are of do we get an appraisal, do we hire an agent? So if staff could bring back a recommendation on how to proceed, that would probably be smarter than us trying to figure it out.
I agree. We've got plenty of support there in the industrial park in terms of commercial salespeople that can help and give us their opinions, I'm sure. Does that help in that regards?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay.
Great. Thank you all for that piece.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor, for actually coming up with the idea of marketing while the buildings were still occupied. That was something that had not occurred to any of us, and that really helps get us over this hump of having to disrupt staff. I think that's a great compromise, so I thank you for that.
Well, it's a group effort around here these days. It's important, right? Okay, thank you. Next item on new business is to officially take a motion to move on with negotiations with our candidate for the city administrator position, Reagan Boley. We'll say Boley for now.
Long
Mr. Mayor, I move to authorize the mayor to negotiate an employment contract with Regan Boley within the parameters established by council in the previously approved recruiting profile.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made by Council President Dale and seconded by Councilor Hensley to authorize me, the mayor, to negotiate an employment contract with Regan Boley within the parameters established by council in the previously approved recruiting profile. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? That carries 6-0. Thank you, gentlemen, and Madam Councilor Hensley. City Administrator's business and staff reports.
Nothing? Thank you.
Nothing. Great.